Hi, I'm Dr. Lindsay Nelson. I am coming to you guys this week to talk about the brain-gut connection. It really is a hot topic. Last week I was talking about emotional eating, and someone that was participating in the live emotional eating webinar asked me about the connection between dementia and your GI, and I thought this would be a great thing to talk about this week. The brain-gut connection is a very hot topic. The gut has now been renamed or dubbed the second brain. And so I thought it'd be fun to talk about. And I think I'm going to carry it on to next week, and I'll talk about the connection between your gut and our mood, such as depression and anxiety. But today I just wanted to open the dialogue. The brain talks to the GI via the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is all about the parasympathetic response, which is all rest and digest. So everything that you can think of that involves digestion, salivation, increase your stomach acid, digestive enzymes, gallbladder contraction, intestinal motility, everything that everything that goes into digestion. But most of the communication is actually efferent, meaning it's going from the gut to the brain. And in fact, about 80% of communication between the brain and the gut is from the gut to the brain. And it communicates via the enteric nervous system. In fact, we have more neurons in our GI than we have in our entire spinal cord. And that's why we feel so much in our gut. So what does all this mean? Why should we care? Well, most of us have experienced nervousness or being scared, and we get the feelings of butterflies in our stomach. But what if the reverse is to be true, that things that are happening in our gut can affect our brain? And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that a suboptimally performing gastrointestinal system or gut may be affecting your mood, your memory, and your cognitive skills. So an atypical communication between your brain and your gut would be the sympathetic response, which is opposite of the parasympathetic. This is our flight or fight response. And blood flow then goes out to our major muscle groups. It doesn't go to our GI, right? There's no time we need to fight the lion or run away. There's no time to have, time to digest. So because there's not as much activity in our GI, the motility slows down, blood flow to the motility slows down, digestion slows down, which if there's food or other things happening, that can boost overgrowth of bacteria and yeast into the gut, and potentially maybe overrun the gut, which then causes cytokines to be released. If you attended my lecture last week or the week before, you know that cytokines are like the flags of the immune system that says, hey, come fight over here. Here is the area of that needs attention. And so that response is pro-inflammatory. It's trying to clean up the area. And so if the inflammatory response does not get mitigated, then that inflammation goes unchecked, then it can become chronic, and it can leave the GI and go to other parts of the area of the body. We talked about leaky gut and how leaky gut can lead to symptoms like heartburn or irritable bowel syndrome, irritable bowel disease, food allergies, food intolerances, etc. And that leaky gut is when that intestinal barrier has been broken down, and those immune complexes and stuff that are now entering the blood and traveling. Now, what can happen is those immune complexes, those cytokines, those pro-inflammatory immune cells can go to the brain and cause what we call leaky gut. Not a technical term, but leaky gut can cause inflammation. Leaky brain can cause inflammation, decrease nerve conductance, give poor communication between the brain and the gut. And that leaky brain can activate, what happens is the immune cells in the brain are called microglia. They don't have the same kill switch as other cells in our body. If you roll your ankle and there's inflammation in your ankle, you don't, then have inflammation in your shoulder, because there's these cells kind of have a kill switch. But in the brain, they don't have this kill switch. And so that inflammation can span. There is a definitive association between dysbiosis, which is an abnormal microbiome, with central nervous system disorders such as autism, anxiety, depression, Parkinson's, ALS, etc. In fact, there's this whole new world of medicine called cytokine model of cognitive function, where it is linking depression, anxiety, brain fog, autoimmune diseases such as MS, Parkinson's, ALS, that type of stuff, with gut inflammation. Um, the the immune system produces proteins as part of its defense mechanism. And these proteins are Lewy bodies and beta amyloid bodies, which have been linked to Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And there is a connection that they're finding between the bacteria in our GI and these protein bodies. So a lot of biologists are starting the groundwork for treating autoimmune diseases and anxiety and depression and stuff like that with probiotics. In fact, probiotics are now being termed in the psychotherapy world as psychobiotics. The other thing to think about is lipopolysaccharides. These are inflammatory toxins that are released by certain bacteria in our gut that can cause inflammation. And that inflammation, if it leaves the gut and goes into the blood system, is where we start to see more of this kind of inflammatory process. Inflammation and high lipopolysaccharides have been associated with a number of brain disorders such as depression, dementia, schizophrenia, and that type of stuff. And they have been shown some studies that show probiotics can improve symptoms of stress and anxiety and depression, etc. So the takeaway, and I kind of just wanted to start the dialogue, so next week I can talk about depression and anxiety and its relation to the gut, but is that the inflammatory response that started in your gut can travel to your brain, which then your brain can have can then release this stress response, which can affect your GI function, and you get this kind of feedback loop that is negative and just kind of feeding on itself. So that in the end of the day, the real message is that the health of your gut is the utmost importance, not only for your brain, but for your immune system, like we talked about, and for your mood, like we will talk about next week. Thank you for joining me. I am really loving these wellness webinars. If you have any questions, please email me at drlindseysnelson@gmail.com. LINDSEYSNELSON@gmail.com, or check out my website, drlindseysnelson.com. Thank you, everybody.